Welcome, Shadow Seekers, to American Shadows, Crimes and Chronicles. Today, we're unearthing a tale that'll haunt your thoughts long after it ends. Whether you're glued to the screen or just listening in, you're in for a wild ride through history's darkest corners. If you're new, hit subscribe to join our mission of exposing America's hidden truths. Regulars, your likes fuel our journey into the unknown. Now, let's peel back the layers of time and reveal the secrets beneath. Ready? Let's begin. Frederick Douglass, the daring escape that changed American history. Hello, friends, and welcome to American Shadows, Crimes and Chronicles. Before we dive into today's gripping tale, I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for your incredible support. Your likes, comments, and shares aren't just numbers to us. They're the lifeblood of this channel. You're doing an amazing job spreading the word about these important stories, and we couldn't be more grateful. Your engagement truly allows us to shed light on these pivotal moments in history that continue to shape our nation. Now, let's travel back to the sweltering late summer of 1838 to witness a daring escape that would change the course of American history. On or around September 3rd of that year, a young enslaved man named Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey, later known to the world as Frederick Douglass, made his bid for freedom. This act of courage would not only transform his own life, but would help shape the fight against slavery in the United States. What drives a man to risk everything for freedom? How does one maintain hope in the face of overwhelming oppression? And how did Frederick Douglass's escape from bondage set the stage for his remarkable life as an abolitionist, orator, and statesman? Picture, if you will, the bustling port city of Baltimore in 1838. The air is thick with the scent of the nearby Chesapeake Bay, the streets alive with the sounds of commerce and industry. But beneath this veneer of progress and prosperity lies a dark reality, the institution of slavery that has held millions in bondage for generations. In this city, we find our protagonist, Frederick. Born into slavery in 1818 on Maryland's eastern shore, Frederick had already experienced a lifetime of hardship by the age of 20. Separated from his mother as an infant and raised by his grandmother, he was eventually sent to Baltimore to live with his owner, Hugh Auld. It was here that Frederick encountered something that would change his life forever: literacy. Despite it being illegal to teach slaves to read and write, Frederick managed to acquire these skills, partly aided by his master's wife, who taught him the alphabet. This taste of knowledge ignited a fire within him, opening his mind to ideas of freedom and equality. Frederick quickly realized that education was his key to freedom, a notion that became a defining theme in his life. By 1838, Frederick was working in the shipyards of Baltimore, his wages claimed by his enslaver. He had already attempted to escape once before, in 1836, but that plan had been discovered and thwarted. Now, 2 years later, he was more determined than ever to claim his freedom. The days leading up to his escape were fraught with tension. Frederick knew that if caught, he would face severe punishment, possibly even death. But the alternative, a life in bondage, was unthinkable. He had tasted knowledge, had glimpsed the possibility of a life lived on his own terms, and he could not turn back. His plan was audacious in its simplicity. Disguised as a sailor, Frederick would board a train northward, using borrowed identification papers from a free black seaman. The sailor's uniform was provided by Anna Murray, a free black woman who would later become his wife. This disguise was crucial, as free black sailors were often the only black men allowed to travel freely in the North. On the chosen day, which Douglass would later recall as being in early September, possibly the 3rd, he put his plan into action. With his heart pounding, he made his way to the train station. Each step could be his last as a free man, each face in the crowd a potential threat. As he boarded the train, Frederick must have felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. The first leg of his journey would take him to Havre de Grace, Maryland. From there, he would travel by ferry to Wilmington, Delaware, then by steamboat to Philadelphia, and finally to New York City. The journey was not without close calls. At one point, Frederick encountered a man who knew him, but miraculously the man did not expose him. Was it sympathy, indifference, or perhaps divine intervention? Whatever the reason, Frederick's secret remained safe. After a harrowing journey that lasted less than 24 hours, Frederick arrived in New York City on September 4th, 1838. He was free, but far from safe. The Fugitive Slave Act meant that he could be captured and returned to slavery at any time. As he set foot on free soil, he knew his life had changed forever. The sense of relief and triumph was overwhelming, but freedom also brought new challenges. It wasn't until he reached New Bedford, Massachusetts, that Frederick could finally breathe a sigh of relief. It was here that Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey would take on the name by which history remembers him, Frederick Douglass. This new name symbolized his rebirth as a free man, and the beginning of his life's work as an abolitionist and champion of human rights. Douglass's escape was more than just one man's bid for freedom. It was a blow against the entire institution of slavery. In the years that followed, Douglass would become one of the most famous men in America, using his powerful voice and pen to argue for the abolition of slavery and for equal rights for all. His autobiographies, starting with Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave in 1845, would open the eyes of many to the horrors of slavery. His speeches would inspire thousands to join the abolitionist cause, and his advice would be sought by presidents, including Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. Douglass's impact extended beyond the abolitionist movement. He became a vocal advocate for women's rights, suffrage, and civil rights, leaving a lasting legacy as one of the most important figures in American history. But all of this began with that daring escape in September 1838. It's worth noting that the exact date of Douglass's escape remains uncertain. Douglass himself was unsure, a common reality for many enslaved people who were denied knowledge of dates, even their own birthdays. This uncertainty adds another layer of poignancy to his story, highlighting the dehumanizing nature of slavery. As we reflect on Frederick Douglass's escape from slavery, we're left with profound questions about the nature of freedom, the power of education, and the courage it takes to stand up against injustice. How many others, whose names we'll never know, made similar bids for freedom? What does Douglass's story tell us about the human spirit's capacity to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds? This is American Shadows, where we peer into the darker corners of our nation's past. Until next time, remember that history isn't just a collection of dates and names. It's a living thing that continues to shape our world today. The echoes of that September day in 1838 continue to resonate, reminding us of the ongoing struggle for freedom and equality. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep watching American Shadows. For in understanding our past, we gain insights that can help us build a more just and equitable future. And once again, thank you for your incredible support. Your engagement is what makes these stories come alive.